Hey everybody, it's Matt. Wrestling with Whiskey is back. Another episode of Straight Shooting right here on deck. And I said this earlier, and it's probably true, with my most intimidating interview to date, because I am talking to the man who does this for a living. This is his calling. This is his thing. He has spoken to many, if not all, of your favorite wrestlers, performers, everybody in between. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Van Vliet. Chris, how are you, man? Thank you for being here.
Matt, thank you. This is incredible. Thank you so much for having me on, but I just feel so unqualified to be here. You're talking about you're nervous. I'm nervous. Tasting whiskey with you is like talking about space with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's like talking about football with Tom Brady. What am I doing here?
Are you trying to get me to like loan you money or something like that? Like,
that part, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Never done this before, and I don't know what's about to happen here.
Well, hopefully a little bit of fun, a little bit of education. Fun, education. Maybe I am Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who knows?
You are. Like
he's got
paler.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. He's got a little bit more. We both got a voice, though. We both have a very distinct voice.
You do have a great voice. And what a microphone you've got here.
Hey, nothing like yours.
I mean, this is the podcast mic.
That SM7B, baby, microphone nerds.
Wow, we're nerding out on podcast equipment.
Oh, this last year doing this and like Twitch and all the YouTube stuff and anything, I dove in. I'm a little bit of a tech geek at heart, and that was kind of reignited when I got really into all this stuff. So yeah, I'll nerd out over people's like cameras, microphones, headsets. Oh yeah,
whatever camera you're using is very good.
It's okay. I've gotten it to this set. It's a Canon EOS M50.
Oh, it's a DSLR.
Yeah. And it's taken about 3 workarounds to get it to work in a both live streaming and like recording situation. I have to like 3 different things plugged into it to make sure it doesn't shut off. So great camera, but it doesn't work natively for streaming or recording long things too well. So, but I've got it set up. As long as I don't move anything or unplug anything,
I have been thinking, so I'm using a webcam right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about switching over to a DSLR as my podcasting camera, but I don't know.
If you got the coin,
if I'm being completely honest with you, I didn't have a great virtual setup. I was always doing my interviews in person. Always. And then COVID happened. And like everybody else, I thought, this thing's only going to last for 2 weeks. I'll just use my webcam, my computer for 2 weeks. And then after we realized COVID was going to last a long time, I bought an actual mic and an actual webcam. And I'm just kind of just secretly hoping I can just do them in person again.
Well, I mean, we know that's going to happen again. It will happen again, one way or another. That kind of stuff will happen. But I mean, I don't know. It looks nice. That nice shiny little YouTube plaque behind you. You don't want to let that guy down.
This old thing? Oh, true story though. I'm super proud of it because that's an accomplishment that like we all did together, which I felt really good about. It took me 8 years to get 100,000 subscribers. So for anybody that's watching this right now and you're on that slow growth with YouTube, we've all been there.
Yeah, that's the other. I think there's so many people. And again, another thing I've looked a lot into this is, what algorithms and posting schedules and editing and all this stuff. And there's so many people. And there are some awesome exceptions of channels that just blow up. But I'm like, so many people I think get frustrated with them when they don't, within their first 6 months, they don't blow up to 50, 100,000 subscribers. Like, what am I doing wrong? It's like, dude, that is an exception. Just keep working on you. Like, almost more than anything, like as long as you're enjoying it, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the time. I'm like, people will find that. And it's not going to be overnight.
It is such a slow process. Like we can't all be Mr. Beast. Like Mr. Beast has 65 million subscribers and absolutely crushes it. But he also started out with like none. So we all start in the same place.
Yes, absolutely. And great transition where we started. So let's talk a little bit about that. The Interview King. Where are you from originally? We've talked about this before, but for anybody who hasn't heard you before, like where are you from? And what, a little bit about your just kind of growing up and stuff.
I am Canadian, so I'm from a town called Pickering, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. That was where I was born and raised. My parents still live in the same house that I like grew up in.
Yes.
My parents are also still married. They've been together for 47 years, and they've set this incredible, amazing example of love and friendship and compassion or companionship. But yeah, I grew up in Canada, and my dream was to be a TV host. My dream, my goal, my passion was to be a TV host. And long story short, I kind of realized in college that like, oh my God, we have to work for the rest of our lives. And I had the best time in college. I mean, you want to talk about drinking? That was my major in college. And so when it came time to like, I knew graduation was like around the corner. It was 7 months away. And I went, oh my God, if I got to go work for the next 40, 50 years of my life, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to hate my job. I don't want to be one of those people who can't enjoy Sunday because Monday is the next day. So I reached out to every radio station and every TV station in my college town and said, I'm super passionate about broadcasting. I'm a communication studies major. Can I just volunteer? Can I come in and see how it's done in the real world? And one radio station said, sure, come be part of our street team, hand out like stickers at different events. I actually handed out stickers at a WWE live event.
Really?
In Kitchener, Ontario in 2004. Then this TV station said, we take on volunteers all the time. It was a community-run TV station. I had all the behind-the-scenes jobs, audio, VTR, cameras, floor directing, all that stuff. I got to learn like how the sausage was made. And then this radio station said, we don't take on volunteers. How would you like a job? And I went, okay. They said it only pays $8 an hour. I said, well, that's $8 more than I thought I was going to make. And I was a board operator at an AM news talk radio station. I was the guy working the board behind the scenes. And then when my shift was over, I would go into the recording studio and I would read the scripts so that I had like a demo reel so I could show people like, hey, here's what I sound like on the radio. And that's kind of where my career started. That was when I was still in college. And then as the year was winding down, as I was getting closer to graduation, I knew I needed an internship. So I reached out to a bunch of places, seeing if I could get an internship. Nobody wrote me back. And I scoured the internet to find the email for the general manager at this small station about an hour away in Peterborough, Ontario, the home of Bobby Roode.
That's right. I performed in Peterborough. Beautiful little town. Oh, yeah.
So I emailed the general manager completely unsolicited, and I said, I lied to him. I said, I'm going to be there in Peterborough next week for spring break. It'd be great to come in and talk to you about a possible internship. And he basically went, well, if you're going to be in town, we don't usually do this, but if you're going to be in town, come on by. And I won him over because I had built up so much experience with all that volunteer work and the $8 an hour job. Ended up giving me an internship. 2 weeks in, I was on TV as an intern reporting on a story. And then a few months later, they ended up offering me a job. So that's kind of where my story began. And I'm super fortunate to work in broadcasting now and then to be able to dip my toe every once in a while into the wrestling world.
That's so cool. And what a prime example of kind of just like sheer like willpower, like I'm gonna make this happen. And now this is something too that I actually very firmly believe in as well. And it skates a thin line too, because the volunteer stuff and everything I think is so important. And I understand there's a lot of people, you got to protect yourself too, because you don't want to be exploited for free labor in a lot of ways. You know, like I've talked about this with young actors and stuff a lot too. Like you got to know your value and everything too. But at the same time, like you can't be too much of a like or curmudgeon. Yeah, go in, just learn things. People love that kind of that passion, that desire, and that will get rewarded. And it rewarded you with the opportunities to learn things and add it to your resume. Like you said, you were able to get back, there and play with recording stuff, getting a reel done, finding your voice a little bit because you volunteered at that job. So I mean, like, yes, everyone, we all want the good paying internship and stuff like that. But, sometimes just look for those opportunities to learn for the sake of learning. And you'd be surprised what it'll supply later.
You're getting paid in experience. And maybe if I had taken an internship early on that was paying me in dollars, I might have been making photocopies or making coffee. Instead, that internship was me going out in the field every single day with a reporter, watching them do their thing. And I learned so much more than I ever learned in college by being an intern.
So, what were you studying broadcasting in college?
I was studying communication studies. So my
Okay.
major was communication studies. I minored. Well, I kind of like I kind of found out in my final year I was 1 credit away from a geography minor.
Of
So I'm like,
course.
well, guess I'm a geography minor now. And I took I think my final class was like natural disasters. It was the easiest geography class ever. I went to school at Wilfrid Laurier University. So anyone who is from Canada will know that's in Waterloo. Anyone who has ever visited Canada, he's the guy on the $5 bill.
Oh,
Wilfrid
okay.
Laurier is the guy on the $5 bill in Canada is blue. So he's the guy on the $5 bill. But yeah, my goal was I wanted to be on TV, and I knew it was a long shot, especially in Canada. There's not a ton of on-air jobs in Canada, and there's certainly not a lot of on-air jobs as a TV host or an entertainment reporter. But I thought, man, if I can give this a try and give everything I've got, if it doesn't work out, at least when I'm 76 and hate my job that I've retired from, at least I can go, when I was 21, I really, really tried and I gave it my all. Didn't work
Yeah.
out, but at least I know in my heart that I tried.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised with that geography minor you didn't end up on like Nat Geo or something for a short span. I mean, broadcasting with a geography minor, shoot, should have been on Travel Channel.
I think we all know that it really doesn't matter what you majored in school. It's just a matter of what do you do with it afterwards.
Very, very true. So then at what point did you go from Peterborough to the US? What brought you, when did you kind of make the transition over here?
It was 5 years into my career that I made the jump to the US. So I was at the Peterborough job for about a year and a half. The internship ended up turning into a job. I was driving an hour each way, working my high school job at the pet store in the fish department to pay for the gas to drive to that internship. Yeah. And then when it snowed, it would take sometimes 2.5 hours to get to work because, it's Canada. Ended up getting a job after that at MTV2 Canada in Vancouver. So picked up my entire life. And I knew that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do like hosting. I wanted to show off some personality. Mm-hmm. Picked up my entire life, packed it up into my 1995 blue Toyota Corolla and drove 47 hours across the country from Toronto to Vancouver. And I started hosting the show, and it was amazing. I was interviewing actors and celebrities, comedians. That's where I did my first ever wrestling interview with Bobby Lashley.
That was the first one, huh?
Yeah, January 2007, my first ever wrestling interview.
Yes.
And the reason I started even thinking about the idea of working in the US is our show ended up getting canceled after a year. It was like devastating. I'd picked up my entire life and moved there. And I had to decide pretty quickly, like, what do I do now? Do I stay in Vancouver where I don't have a job and like hope for the best? Or do I pack my car back up and, drive back home and move back in with my parents? And my lease was about to be up. So I had to make a decision like really quick. And I decided I was going to leave, move back in with my parents. And I made it my job to find a job because I was unemployed. And I'd been living my dream for 2.5 years at this point, working on television. And I would be a finalist for a job. It'd be final 2, final 3, final 5, and just not get the job. And it was so heartbreaking. And I started to think to myself, if I can't get a job in my own country, I'm going to look elsewhere. And I started looking for an agent in the US and ended up signing with an agency in Los Angeles. And they started pitching me for different jobs in Los Angeles and in New York. And I didn't end up getting any of those at the time, ended up hosting a show in Toronto. And then my agent said, how would you feel about being an entertainment reporter in Cleveland? It's a 3-year contract. You'd be at the CBS station in Cleveland. I said, let's do it. Like, I'll audition. Let's see what happens. I auditioned. They liked me, hired me, gave me a visa to work in the US, which is a very important thing. Mm-hmm. And in my first week of work, Matt, I was on the red carpet at the Oscars. It was like, what a crazy transition it was.
No kidding. From your parents' house to the Oscars in the span of probably a couple weeks.
Yeah, and it was wild. And so that was 2010 when I moved to the US. And I'm really happy to call the United States home. But, Canada will always be my home. I miss my friends and my family there. But there's just been so many incredible career opportunities for me here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially, I mean, entertainment reporter. I mean, yeah, California, Hollywood, everybody knows that that's kind of and that's where you are now. You're in LA?
Yeah, I moved to LA about a year ago. So it
Okay.
was Cleveland and then Miami, Cincinnati, and now I'm here.
Hopping all over the place. And again, coming back to like this, that willpower and everything, again, I send this message out to everybody. I mean, no matter sometimes how good you think you are and all this stuff, I'm like, it will take try after try after try. And like people, I feel like that we say that a lot, but I'm like, especially in show business or anything like this, I'm like, rejection is part of it. And like, if you can handle that and keep going, like, I'm like, that is the kind of resolve that will get you through a career like this. And it can lead to really, really good things. So I think that's just such a great message and example to people. Because
it's putting in the time too. Yeah. Like I firmly believe in Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. Like I think that in order to become an expert at anything, you've got to put in the time. And I think that, I'm sure you see this in wrestling all the time. Some guy who has 2 years experience thinks he's the next John Cena or something. And you go, yeah, you're pretty good for being 2 years in. Yeah. Come talk to me in 3 or 5 more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, there's so much, and it's so great to have like natural ability. And I think I'm talking kind of about wrestling. You brought up that example, but I think it goes for anything. Some people they get whatever math, they get computers or whatever.
Yeah.
And so but a lot of the time those people will rest on that. It's a crutch and they'll hit a wall where I'm like, but if you grind and you put in those work and you learn everything you can about whatever that world is, whatever that subject is, I'm trying to do that with whiskey. Like, again, we're going to go through and I'm going to try to lead you through this thing, but I'm still learning every single day. And even by talking to like you and all my friends and everything about this, many of who are not, for example, huge whiskey drinkers, they're not huge whiskey fans like me, but I'm learning by hearing the things that they're saying. Because I say this all the time. Sometimes you got to hear it from people outside your bubble to kind of learn things. Like, okay, so like next time somebody comes to me, a complete stranger or something like that, or if I ever host an event and they're like, hey, I like things that taste like this. What on whiskey can you tell me? Now, because if you're a whiskey fan and you go, I like Glendronach Scotch whiskey, I can tell you 5 whiskeys to have because I know what that is. I know what you like, blah, blah, blah.
I have no idea what that is.
Yes, exactly. But if you're like, I don't know, I'm new. I like things that are sweeter and not too hot or, those very basic things. I need to I want to learn what people taste when I give them these different whiskeys and stuff like that. So again, all this wrapped up to say, put in that time, like you said, the time, the effort, and no matter how good you think you are, you can always get better, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's find the thing you're passionate about.
Yes.
And I understand that not everybody like has a passion that's like sitting in front of them glowing and going, this is the thing for me. But whatever interests you, like start to follow that path. Because we especially live in a time right now where with the supercomputer that lives in our pocket, you have the ability to connect to other people. If whiskey is your jam, Matt, which is amazing, what if you're into like peanut butter? You can go find peanut butter tasting groups. Like that's how crazy the world is that we live in. And this didn't exist 10 years ago.
Dude, that's, and I don't even know if I remember when we first like talked like last year and stuff like that, but yeah, it's crazy. Like life, I make life's a niche and then you die. Right. There's so many, when I found, t-shirt. Oh baby. There's so many, like when I found this whole community, I didn't know there was a whole community like behind it. Like again, there's a niche, there is a community that we can find for anything. Like you said, if your passion is, there's collectors, there's gamers, there's literally, I guarantee you anything that you're like, there's no business in this, there's no community, there's nothing in there. Trust me, there is 110%. And find the thing that you like to do when no one is watching. That's my like find, the work where it's like putting in the work, whether it is, and even for people like you and me, where a lot of our work is in front of a camera. And I get it. So we're trying to get people to watch, but it's putting in the work to find your guests, research them, teach yourself to edit, teach yourself good audio stuff. All that stuff goes on behind the scenes. And if you can get a kick out of that thing and get into that sort of stuff, it's going to make that feeling of, hey, I never work a day in my life sort of thing come true.
Yeah. And you can learn how to do anything nowadays.
Absolutely.
There are tutorials for everything.
Absolutely. So, and speaking of which, let's try to put you through a little tutorial right now. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's go to sample A. I sent you 3 samples, just like everybody. So
this is sample A.
You have probably one of the most professional so far displays for me. Most people, it's either one glass that they pour all 3 in, or I had
one glass they pour all 3 in.
Not at one time, but like have one, and then they keep using the same glass, stuff like that. But you've got a nice, good glass. You have 3 separate glasses.
Little notches for my fingers to go in. See that?
Are you just discovering this? Did you not know you had this?
The whole reason I bought these.
Yeah. You got a neat.
So what do I do first?
So yes, as we go through with everything. So first, when you're tasting whiskey, it's very similar to wine in a lot of ways. If you ever watched one of those sommelier movies or something like that, first thing you want to do, which I don't spend a lot of time on, because especially in bourbon, which is my wheelhouse, I don't find a huge variation. But you look at the color, so you can hold your glass up to a light, kind of see how the light reflects through it. Is it light? Is it dark? This is more important in things like wine, where again, you have red, you have white, you have different things. And even in Scotch, because they use so many different barrel types, that, again, I've had 20-year Scotches that look like white wine, and I've had 5-year Scotches that look like motor oil, because they use different barrel types. Now, in bourbon, you have to use a new charred oak barrel to age it, or else you can't call it bourbon. And with it being a new charred oak barrel, it influences the liquid, it influences the whiskey very heavily, very quickly. So within 2-3 years, you've got pretty much most of the color that thing's going to have. It can gain more over time, but like between a 5-year bourbon and a 15-year bourbon, color-wise, there's not always a ton of difference. So I don't spend a ton of time on color, but come up with your fanciest word for copper or brown.
Ooh, this is a caramel.
There you go.
It's a caramel color.
Burnt caramel.
I'm looking at all 3 here, and
do you notice color differentiations?
C is definitely a darker one.
Okay. And we'll get into that a little bit. Good observation right off the bat.
Yeah, A and B look very similar.
Okay, and that also makes sense. So see, good observation right off the bat.
Okay. Well, 10 out of 10 already.
We're batting 1,000, baby. So the next big thing, and this is my favorite part of the whole experience, is nosing. So again, nosing exactly what you think it is. You smell it, right? But something that was taught to me by whiskey writer Fred Minnick, who's a very well-known in the bourbon and whiskey community, spirits writer. Keep your mouth open as you smell it. It'll keep open your olfactory senses. So that alcohol punch, especially because whiskey is a higher proof, like as opposed to wine or something like that, it'll let a little bit of that punch dissipate because you have more circulation going on. So put your nose kind of near the rim. You don't have to dip it in there too deep, but just kind of give it a smell. Tell me, what is it?
Potent smell.
It is potent for sure.
The nostrils.
It will do that, especially for, again, if you're newer to this, but you can kind of hold it back.
Anchorman reference for you there. That's
is it sweet? Is it thing?
I don't think it's sweet.
Okay. You can go like nostril at a time. Spicy, caramel is often a big one. Vanilla is pepper, or black pepper. There is ethanol. There is the alcohol, of course.
Let me smell another one here.
Sure.
Oh yeah, that definitely smells different.
Right.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So there's different things, and now that you've done that, we can do. I do this with everybody too. Smell your own skin. And it helps bring your nose back to neutral. Now you can go back to your original. because your pheromones and stuff in your own skin kind of set yourself back to normal. So like if you've been smelling gasoline for 3 hours and then you want to come and try to do a whiskey tasting, bring yourself back to neutral.
This might actually have, now that I've whiffed the other ones too, nosed the other ones. Maybe a little sweeter.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit sweeter than the initial ones. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. And now take a little sip. Again, does not have to be a big one. You don't have to fire it back or anything like that. The key is here, you want enough that you can either let it sit on your tongue, or even if you want, like swish it around in your mouth a little bit.
Okay. Oh, that finish is really smooth.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm definitely tasting. Oh, it's a very distinct taste here. It's I don't know, is it like a pine? It's like does that make sense?
Sure. Again, there's no wrong answers here. Almost like a I think I know what you're kind of. It's almost like a grassy kind of.
Yeah.
Hay kind of note. Yeah, grainy maybe a little bit.
It is sweet though.
Yeah.
That is a sweet, that is a dangerous whiskey. Is that what that is? I could drink a lot of those.
Now I'm going to ask you this is kind of an advanced thing, but and you can take another small sip if you need to, but like,
please, why not?
When you taste
the clock somewhere.
You're damn right it is. When you're tasting, and especially after you swallow, with the kind of the heat and the tingle and everything, right, from the drink, where is it? In the very front? Is it right near your teeth? Is it in the middle? Is it near the back, almost in your throat?
Oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I definitely taste it on the roof of my mouth.
Right.
Feel on the roof of my mouth. There's a tingle, the very tip of my tongue.
Okay.
Like a tingle, little sensation there, and then I feel the burn in my throat.
Did you notice where initially? Because you'd be surprised. It's kind of crazy. Certain ones will hit, like you take a sip and it'll be back of the palate. It'll be all the way like almost goes right to the back of your throat kind of thing. Other ones like they sit on the. It's always on the roof of your mouth, but sometimes they sit very far forward. Sometimes it's in the middle. Sometimes it's very far back.
Well, I guess I got to drink some more to figure it out.
You know, this for science, ladies and gentlemen.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, baby.
I think it's on the tip of my tongue.
Okay, so it's a little more forward taste, you know.
Yeah, it's
okay.
But then like the way it like settles, I guess, I don't know if that's the word, but like it takes probably a good 5 seconds after I've swallowed it to then you feel the heat in your throat. Like it goes down so smooth.
And that's the final part of a tasting is called the finish. So just like wrestling, it's got to have a good finish, right? But yeah, so after you swallow it, it's kind of the combination of that feeling, again, that it gives you kind of going down your throat. There's a little bit of that burn, a little bit of that spice, a little bit of that tingle. But then it's also, and so it's hard to get this at the start, I understand. But sometimes those flavors that dry kind of on your mouth, on the roof of your mouth after you've swallowed, they'll almost change. And I notice this especially with like really old whiskeys. The older it is, the more barrel influences that there are. It'll dry in the roof of your mouth and you're like, oh, it's kind of spicy or whatever. And then like a couple seconds will go by, like, oh, wait, there's like dried fruit kind of thing. It kind of sits there, and the longer it takes, the more you get. Some things have very short finishes. You drink, down, gone in, 5 seconds. Other ones you can taste for 30, 40 seconds sometimes after you've swallowed. So
this is all so new to me because my first introduction to drinking, like most people, is in high school and then into college, when the only purpose of drinking is to get from 0 to 10 as quickly as you possibly can. Absolutely. And you don't care if you're drinking turpentine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first moved to Florida to do FCW, WWE stuff, I mean, yeah, going out in South Tampa, that was the goal, and we hit that goal very quickly. Trust me. But all right, so put that one aside. We'll come back to it a little bit.
Come back to A.
Yes, absolutely.
Now we have B.
We'll get to B. We'll get to B.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. There's a process here, Chris. I have a whole system. No,
this is your show, not mine.
Does that ever happen to you? Like, have you ever? Because I'm sure this isn't the only interview you've ever done. Do you like when you get interviewed? Do you ever feel like the weird like urge to like kind of like take over and start asking the host questions?
I mean, I hope not. I honestly just assumed we'd go ABC, so I was like, here we go.
Sure. No, I thought about it. I'm like, man, I can imagine like if so much of your gig is like that. It's tossing questions at the person you're talking to, and then I can imagine it'd be easy to forget. Like, oh wait, I'm the one being interviewed. Like the urge to just kind of like turn it around and start, asking questions about the host and everything.
I think I think my job has definitely made me a better question asker in life.
Oh yeah.
And Tony Robbins always says the quality of your life is the quality of the questions that you ask. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. That's true.
Yeah.
Right. If you asked for $1,000, life gives you $1,000. You ask for $100 million, probably not going to just get your $1,000,
Yeah.
So I think it's just, it's definitely made me think about questions in a completely different way.
Yeah, no, God, I never thought about it like that. It's true. The kind of questions you ask in life, and like in a kind of greater sense of the word, like the questions you ask of life.
Yes.
Have a huge bearing on what happens. That's true.
Yes.
Simple questions get a simple result. You know what I mean?
That is, and you can ask the same question in several different ways and
also
get
true.
Completely different results.
Very true.
I also learned that why questions are not great questions, especially in interviews. Why makes people very defensive. Like, oh, why did you do that? Ooh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
What was it that led you to that decision?
Interesting.
Completely different question.
What I learned something along the lines of that too. But it wasn't so much about questions. It was more about like almost like persuasiveness and stuff like that. The idea that it's kind of the thing. Don't ask yes or no questions. Like like, hey, can I have the job? Right? And it's like, no, we're not. But it's like if you pose it as like, how can we work together? So you don't leave a yes or no option. You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to tell me how we can make this, like, how can I make this happen instead of, can I have this? Like, gimme.
No.
You're like, hey, how can we work together to make X, Y, or Z happen?
Stuff like that. I have an interview coming up with Chris Voss, who's a retired FBI negotiator. And he talks a lot about that and just the power of words. And I'm so fascinated to dive into like exactly what you're talking about. Same phrasing, same situation, but just phrase it a little bit differently, get a completely different result.
Yeah. Oh wow. I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
I'll let you know when that one drops.
Yeah, that would be very one of those career paths you would never think to be like big on an interview show because we want to talk to celebrities and all this stuff. But I mean, what a fascinating role.
He has an incredible book called Never Split the Difference, which I highly recommend. So if you're looking for a new book to read, you or anybody that's listening to this, Never Split the Difference is so, so good because everything in life is a negotiation. Literally everything.
Absolutely true. Trust me, I'm married.
Sorry, honey. She was a very lovely guest on my show.
Yes, she was. That's right.
Yeah, it was great to have Shaw on the show.
Well, I mean, actually, let's talk about the show a little bit. I'm going to skip over a question or two, but hey, we work on the fly in this business. But so, I mean, we just talked about it. I mean, you get to talk to some of these like really interesting people. Again, a lot of people who are coming and following me will probably know you from a lot of your wrestling interviews and everything, of course, but you've talked to so many people in so many industries. Like, tell me about some of your most just like interesting and different kind of interview people that you've talked to. Maybe people that you were like, I never expected this to turn into this kind of thing.
Oh my gosh. Like, especially when you work in news, like a lot of the people that you're talking to are really just the everyday people that live and work in your community. And some of those people have the most fascinating stories. When I really started to dive into entertainment reporting, my first day on the job was me spending a day with the rapper Chingy. Remember Chingy?
I think so. Yeah, that
rings. Right There was his hit single. I like it when you do that right there, right there. I spent a whole day with him and I'm like, oh my gosh, like last week I was interviewing like the chief medical officer of Peterborough, Ontario. And here I am now, like spending a day with a best-selling rapper. So it's been incredible. Like some of my interviews that I can think of off the top of my head that I've really enjoyed, like obviously The Rock. Like Rock meant so much to me growing up, being a huge fan in the Attitude Era. And have you had a chance to interact with The Rock?
Very, a couple of times, very briefly and everything like that. But yes.
He's great. Like he's larger than life, oozes charisma, so kind, so funny, and also so self-aware to know that like you meeting him is a big moment and he wants to make sure it's an important moment for you. It's so cool to watch him like turn that around. But like Will Smith was a great interview. Oprah, I look up to so much. And the fact that I was able to share some time with her was so cool. One of my favorites is Tom Cruise. I interviewed him on the red carpet for Mission Impossible 6, but we were in Paris and the Eiffel Tower was right behind us as we were doing the interview. It was so cool.
That's awesome. I mean, God, yeah, what a gig, what a life, you know what I mean? And to go back, to The Rock, he's one of those people that absolutely does not fit the old adage of don't meet your heroes. And I'm so happy because in wrestling that adage has been upheld a lot for me. Mm-hmm. So I remember meeting him for the first time. I think I've told this story before. There was a group of us in FCW who had to go set up the ring for him to do a photo shoot back for when he was wrestling CM Punk at the Royal Rumble in like I don't know what that was, 2015. Whenever that brief period when he came back, was doing everything with Cena. But so we had to drive down there from Tampa, set up the ring at like 6 a.m, hang out all day and wait to break it down and then drive it back to him. And he was so nice. I mean, he could have easily come in there, just done his photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. You smell what The Rock is cooking. See you kids and get out of here. But he came over, shook every one of our hands, asked us how we were, introduced us to his mom and his daughter. And like, I don't know. It's always a heartwarming experience. Like I said, when the people you look up to, you're like, oh, they're worthy of being looked up to.
And it's so obvious that The Rock is in the position that he's in right now because that's who he is.
Yeah.
And it's not his quote, but he says it all the time. He says, it's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice. And I think about that all the time because he embodies that. Like he is important. He is arguably the biggest star in the world right now, but he's also one of the nicest people that you could meet.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And
you've been drinking the whiskey here. Come on.
I know, right? Well, that brings me then to bring it kind of back focused on you. Who are some of the people in your life that have given you some of those examples? I mean, you mentioned your parents and stuff before, but those people that you think back on that have, whether actively or passively, kind of showed you things about life, about work and stuff that have kind of given you the philosophy and attitudes that you have towards your work and everything today.
Yeah, my mom and dad, I think I have to mention them again. They're such great examples. And like, I love them so much. And I love them for what they stand for too. So a lot of the lessons we learn, especially from our parents, are like innate lessons. Like they're lessons that just kind of, you know, your dad doesn't sit you down and go, okay, Christopher. Yeah, because my parents call me Christopher. Okay, Christopher, I'm going to teach you this thing. You just kind of learn by watching. And, you know, I was really fortunate, or am really fortunate, that my mom and dad are just great, great people. I learned a lot by like osmosis, I think, and like, especially in the broadcasting world. I didn't have any mentors that were working in the industry that were able to take me under their wing before I got into it. I didn't have anyone to go, here, come over here. I'll show you how this is done. So I would study the people on TV that I thought were the best. And I watched how they did things, because when you're developing your own style as a broadcaster, everyone always says, be yourself. But if you were just being yourself, it's just not that entertaining, right? Yeah. You have to like be a little bit of an amped up version of yourself. You got to find who you are first. You got to find the broadcasting version of yourself and then be that. So I would watch some people, and this is a deep Canadian cut here, but there's a host in Canada by the name of George Strombolopoulos who is very, very good. He is an incredible.
Wait, hold on. Before we, George what?
George Stroumboulopoulos.
Stroumboulopoulos?
Yeah.
What a name.
And every Canadian will know exactly who I'm talking about. He's
well, how do you forget it?
Exactly. He goes by Strombo.
Okay, even better.
So he was a VJ. Much Music was like the Canadian version of MTV. And he was a VJ there for many years. And then he ended up hosting a show. And he still is hosting his own show. But he's not an interviewer. He's a conversationalist. And I loved the way that he was able to break down these conversations and make them just seem like two friends were just having some whiskey and hanging out. And he doesn't know it. I've hung out with him a few times. I've talked to him a few times. He doesn't know that he was a huge influence to me, but I definitely loved his style and wanted to embody that style myself because I hated interviews that felt like interviews. I also loved Joe Rogan. I loved Joe Rogan on Fear Factor. So we're talking way before he became the Joe Rogan that we now know and love. But Joe Rogan on Fear Factor felt like he was a host that talked to the camera like he was talking to his friend. And we're talking early 2000s here when most of the TV hosts were, hello, everybody, and welcome to Fear Factor. We've got 7 contestants today, and they're going to see if fear is a factor for them. That's how most hosts used to be. And Joe Rogan would just be like, hey, welcome to Fear Factor. We've got 7 people here. Let's see if fear's a factor for them. And I'm like, yes, that's how people should speak. So there were a lot of like I said, I learned a little bit by osmosis. So I watched the people who I really looked up to and went, oh, I'll take a little bit from there and a little bit from there and a little bit from there.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I'm going to cut you a little bit deeper on Joe Rogan. My Joe Rogan intro was, you ever remember a show called News Radio?
Of course. Yeah.
Dave Foley and stuff. Oh my God.
That was his big break.
That was,
then the Man Show.
Absolutely. So yeah, I remember that was my OG. That's interesting. Fear Factor. I never would have thought about that. That's true though.
If you watch it back now, and I think it's on Hulu, you can watch some old episodes. He was just so conversational. I also, this is going to be this is a crazy story, but I was in college at the time and there was a show on the new TNN, which was before it was Spike TV. Raw used to be on the new TNN.
That's right.
And it was called The Ultimate Revenge. Terrible, awful show about getting revenge on your friend because they had done some terrible thing to you. And the show was not enjoyable at all. But I taped it because there was this super engaging, charismatic host on there named Ryan Seacrest. And I would watch the show because I just thought his charisma just jumped through the screen. And I would watch the show and I taped the show and watched the VHSs of it. And then a year later, he got American Idol and his life changed.
Yeah. Well, see, man, you obviously people saw what you saw and, it's been a very big success for him as well. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing to look out for. And you know what? You've done a really good job with that. And that's why I think so many people like to talk to you. And I think you're one of those. I can speak for the wrestling world. That's my world. But when your name comes across the email, or the direct message or whatever it is, it's pretty much. There's only a couple people too in the wrestling interview world or whatever. That name comes across your email or whatever. It's a yes. You know what I mean? That's a click and it's a yes because you know what you're getting. There's a level of professionalism, but it's a fun and it's a casual conversation. And you hit the nail on the head, man. It's like talking with a friend that you just met. And so because wrestlers get into everybody's got a wrestling podcast. You know what I mean out there. Yeah, trust me, I've been hit by hundreds of them this year. I've only done a select few because I research them and I know what I'm getting into. And like I said, I mean, you're one of those ones. I can speak for a lot of the boys and a lot of the women in the locker room kind of thing. That name comes across, that's a yes. That's a show to absolutely do.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I really appreciate that. I love the conversation that we had last year. And, I understand it was a sensitive time. It was a sensitive time. You had just been released from your dream job. And I get that a lot of people might not want to talk about it. And I appreciate that, number one, you were willing to talk about it in general. Number two, I appreciate that you were willing to talk about it with me. But most importantly, I appreciate that you were so open about it and that you trusted me enough to have that conversation. So thank you.
Well, no, I mean, absolutely. And again, you laid the groundwork for that by putting in that work and putting in the work with your resume and everything like that. You did that. So it's like, go ahead and flip it back again and thank yourself because you put in the work to develop that reputation that made me want to be so open and do the show and those stuff like that. See, I could keep rewinding this right back on you. I'm going to be the host. You're not going to turn this around on me. Damn it. This is my show. I'm talking about you. On that note, let's move on. Let's have some more whiskey. Let's move on to sample B.
Okay, can finally hold it back up to the light here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this
similar color.
Well, I said the first one was caramel. This might be Werther's Original. That's what I'm going to call this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going brand names now.
Don't know what I'm going to do in the third one here.
But all right, go ahead. Same process. Give that one a little bit of a nose. And now we're going to focus more on differences. What is different from that first one? Bolder, richer, lighter, sweeter.
This is lighter. This
lighter.
Definitely, it doesn't sting as much. The first one had it was very more potent.
Okay.
And I wasn't just quoting Anchorman. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be as bold.
Do you get that same, like, what was the note, kind of like pine, grassy kind of note?
That was more when I tasted it, I think. But no, I don't.
Nothing on the nose there. Okay.
It smells totally different.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. See? Wow. I stuck my nose in A and it hits you. Boom.
Yeah.
This one's a lot more subtle.
Okay.
This is going to be so smooth, isn't it?
Well, only one way to find out. Give it a little sip. Yep. Let it sit. Really think about where it's sitting on your tongue, on the roof of your mouth. Again, sweeter, spicier, maybe more caramel, round. Like sometimes people have different notes. I use like shapes. Is weird as it sound. Like I use is it round? Is it like sharp edges? You know what I mean? Like I always think like geometrically because like there are things that are like, oh, I don't know what the flavor is, but I'm like it's a big like rounded flavor. You know what? To me that makes sense. It's just like it's bold, it's round, it encapsulates a lot. Whereas some things are very like kind of sharp and it's like this and this and like that's it. So
this is sitting definitely further back on my tongue.
Okay.
So that this was not as smooth as I thought it would be because I, didn't smell as strong.
Okay.
This burns a lot more as I swallow it.
Oh, really? Okay. And that's the other thing you can notice too. A lot of these things, it can smell one way and taste totally different. I've noticed that a lot with whiskey.
I think it has a little bit of a fruit. It's not, I wouldn't say it's that sweet, but it's maybe almost citrusy.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Almost like maybe orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fruit notes are very common in whiskey, actually.
I'm going to take another one.
Yeah, by all means.
Well, I'm going to go to the gym after this. This is going to be fascinating. This mixes well with workout, right?
Yes, and you'll be extravascular.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, you are already so incredibly vascular. I need your tips. Is it just drink whiskey all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pre-workout, post-workout, intra-workout, before bed, when you wake up. just a steady diet of it.
Yeah, this one definitely has more of a kick.
Okay, a little bit hotter.
Yeah, okay. Hotter, spicier. Yeah,
that finish, that we talk. Is it lingering longer? Is it shorter? Is it?
Now the linger was longer on the other one, but this one, as it goes down, spicy.
Okay. Burns. All right.
I'm gonna get this all wrong, aren't I?
What did we? I tell you, there is no wrong. There is
right.
no wrong. There is just your experience. This is all. That's one thing, and I'm talking to all the whiskey geeks out there. This is subjective. Remember, sometimes it's hard for and fans of anything. It's hard they have to think like this wing is better than the other. Like this wrestler is better than this wrestler. All this kind of stuff.
This is like when you show someone a pro wrestling match that doesn't watch wrestling and they're like, why is he stomping every time he punches?
or when I show, when my mom started watching wrestling when I got into it. And the biggest thing she couldn't take her mind off of was like when guys like, your Roman Reigns, your Seth Rollins, people with the long hair.
Yeah.
And they wet their hair because it looks cool, right? But she's like, he's so wet and greasy. Like, why would you do that? Like, is there something wrong with his scalp? Like, there's certain things that we just accept sometimes because we're fans of things. We're like, oh yeah, it is kind of weird. Like, if somebody were just walking down the street with just like super wet, slick hair, you'd be like, did you just go swimming? Like, what are you doing?
Although if you watch like anytime Vince wrestled, like it was like he took several bottles of baby oil.
Oh yeah.
Like not just a little bit of baby oil.
No, that was the full squirt. You know what I mean? That's not like dabbing it onto a thing and then rubbing it. That's a full on. He had somebody doing his back and everything like that. Oh yeah. He took advantage of that situation. He didn't do it a lot.
How much baby oil would Aiden English use?
0, because when I got hired, baby oil was literally banned.
What?
Oh, and FCW, there were signs right before Gorilla. It was like that said no baby oil.
Was it to keep the mat cleaner?
Keep the mat, keep the ropes especially because the guys were gonna like springboard or climb up to the rope, and there's baby oil sitting in there, and their boot slips because wrestling boots have very little traction for the most part. So yeah, there was no baby. It was like written down on a big sheet of paper, like no baby oil. So what did everybody do? They loaded up on cocoa butter. They get the little tubs of the Vaseline, and you just rub that on, which isn't as bad as baby oil, but the minute you get it on, and it looks good. It gives you a nice little sheen. But then once it mixes with sweat, it's almost just as bad as baby oil. There were guys when I'm trying to do like an arm bar. It's like, where'd they go? Because it's like, they just slip right out of your arm. You're going for a wrist lock. And you're just like, or God forbid, grabbing like a headlock on like Bo. I remember Bo Dallas because he had the wet hair. That was the other thing. Leave-in conditioner with a bunch of water gives you that wet look. But you put someone like at a headlock like that, or God forbid, grab their head and run them into a turnbuckle, and then all of a sudden I'm going. Because I know I gotta climb up the top rope like 2 minutes later and do a good old crossbody or something, and I don't want to die. So, yeah, you just I get it. Looks cool, makes your delts pop, but just be careful with the amount you use, ladies and gentlemen of the wrestling community.
Wrestling is so fascinating to try to explain to someone who doesn't watch wrestling. That whole conversation we just had, the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Try to explain that to someone who's ever watched wrestling.
It's very weird. It's such, talk about like a niche, wrestling is such, it's very popular, and there's a lot of like mainstream crossover, but like on its own, on paper, it's such a weird little microcosm.
Here's what I think's really interesting about pro wrestling is you and I could watch a basketball game right now, and chances are we've shot some hoops somewhere. We've dribbled a basketball. We watch a baseball game right now. You've probably played catch. You've gone to the batting cage. Most wrestling fans don't even know what the canvas feels like, let alone have they taken a bump or run the ropes. And I think it's so interesting. And I trained for a few months. I'm not fully trained by any means, but at least I can have an appreciation of how much running the ropes hurts, how much taking a bump can wind you, how high that top rope really feels once you climb up there. And it's kind of strange. This might be the only sport or type of entertainment where people don't really fully grasp what you guys are doing in there.
Yeah, it's a tough thing because I think you're right. Like most major forms of like sports or entertainment, people have probably had some kind of tangential. We talk about it all the time, actually, in terms of like selling, right? They would always tell us, be like, look, nobody knows what it's like to get power bombed, right?
Yeah.
But we've all been poked in the eye. We've all banged our elbow on the door. So like if you can emote that, like especially if you do like an eye rake and you can, oh shit, it's that thing. It's not like it's my eye. Yeah. Oh God. You know what I mean? So like getting away from that like 80s selling, it's like, if someone pokes you in the eye, it's like, oh crap, hang on a second.
Oh man, that's good.
Jesus Christ. So like
I gotta try that.
Yeah. There's some like subtleties to it and stuff like that. There you go. Are you all right?
No, okay? I got
yeah, got some whiskey in your eye
there.
Yeah, it splashed up and hit you. There you go. Yeah, see? But yeah, no, you're right. So it's almost like wrestling is almost like, I'm trying to think of like Cirque du Soleil. It's like something you watch.
A great example.
And it's like, it's super cool. I have no idea what that's like or what it takes, but like, I do like watching it. It's one of those weird forms of entertainment where, yeah, you just kind of have to appreciate it for the spectacle it is, because there might not be that kind of connection on the ground that there is for a lot of sports.
And I'm not saying just because you threw the football around in, high school phys ed class, does it mean you can play Monday morning quarterback and talk about how good or bad Ryan Tannehill played. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying at least you understand what a football feels like.
Yes.
When you throw it and catch it.
Even in just like the vaguest sense of what it's like. Yeah. And wrestling is one of those things that, 99% of people just have literally no idea what any of that feels like.
Yet they all play Monday morning quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody does that with everything. So, like, I try to be a little forgiving of that, too. Because, people do that with baseball. People who've never touched a baseball, they go, oh, these coaches suck. This guy's terrible. Why are they playing this dude? Because he's a million times better than you would ever be in your life. And so, yeah. But that's any sport.
I was in your city for Memorial Day. I went to Wrigley Field.
Really?
I went to visit one of my best friends, Jake Hamilton, who is on the Fox station. He's on the morning show, the Fox station in Chicago. And we went to, we went to Wrigley, but we ended up sitting in the rooftops.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those are a Chicago staple.
Yeah, that was an enjoyable, all you can eat, all you can drink Sunday afternoon.
Yep. That's what those are for. That's Wrigleyville on a game day. And never, ever, my wife works in the Wrigleyville area now. And I went to pick her up on a game day. Bad idea. To drive a car within like half a mile of Wrigley Field when a game lets out. Like I was on one city block for like 20 minutes. Like,
oh my gosh.
Inching, like stopping traffic. Police car, like fire trucks driving through, 8 million people crossing the street. Oh, I'm like, oh my God, I need to go 2 blocks. Yeah. And it's taken me a half an hour. So yeah, I have interesting memories of Wrigley Field. But let's move on. Let's close it out. Sample C.
Sample C is definitely a little bit darker.
Okay.
I don't know if you can tell here. I mean, I'll hold up what's left of A. Oh, you can definitely see.
Mm-hmm.
What's left of A and what's left of B. Oh, huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
Huge difference. So this is more of a, this is almost a chocolatey caramel. That's what we've got here.
Okay.
Yeah. That's,
and some of that sweet confectioner's sugar into there. I like it.
Let's hope it's sweet. I mean, who knows?
Who knows? There's only one way to find out. Well, who knows? Wow. There you go.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I need a list of like 20 words and I can circle them.
So yeah, and I you know what? There's something I might start doing. There is a thing called the flavor wheel.
Oh,
which does exist for whiskey.
This sounds like a game show.
Right?
Wheel of flavor.
Whee! Glug. It's true. There's like, I don't know, there's like 140 flavor, but it gives you like the major groups and then those break down into like individual like notes and stuff like that. I like being more freewheeling because I think people relate to things differently.
Yeah.
So not everybody can smell or taste nutmeg, right? But maybe like, and everyone's taste buds are so different. Not only just as a human being, we're all we taste and sense things differently. It changes depending on how much water you've had that day, how much sleep you've had that day, what you've eaten within the last couple of hours. Did you brush your teeth recently? All these little things change. So literally all 3 of these could taste a little different tomorrow to you based on whatever the hell you're doing.
You're blowing my mind. The human experience.
which is what makes it so fun. And so the reason I don't like flavor wheels though is because like one of our patron members and stuff like that, who I love, like on his Instagram, he'll talk about what he tastes, and everything for him, instead of being like, oh, this is like burnt cherries and like, yeah, like nougat, right? No, him is like, this tastes like a Little Debbie. He's like, right? Like this tastes like a Little Debbie snack cake. Or this tastes like a chocolate chip cookie, kind of remind me. It gives me a little bit of that baking powder and everything. So like, it's more of a sense memory, like Lucky Charms, cereal is a big one for a lot of people. I get like yogurt clusters sometimes and things. So like, you're going to have your own things that you relate to in your own sense memory that may not be on a flavor wheel.
Boy, it's so funny. When I go back to one like is very, like it stings when you smell it. Like you feel it in your nostrils.
Sure.
This one smells the least of the three.
Okay.
It has it's
most subtle.
Yes, so much more subtle.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just drunk now. Who knows?
You're a very lucid drunk then. All right.
If I'm drunk after 4 sips of whiskey, I think there might be an issue.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. Is it time to taste it?
Yep. Go ahead and give it a little sip.
Oh, that is rich and bold. And now it's finishing in the throat and the sides of my tongue.
Okay. So it's kind of oozing over to the sides.
Oh my goodness. This is very full bodied. And I know that's a wine term.
No, that is a confectionery and a alcohol term kind of in general. No, that's great.
Oh my goodness. This is very flavorful. Like this is just an infusion of all kinds of different flavors. Let me taste it again.
Yeah.
Oh, this is an experience is what this one is.
Good. And that makes a lot of sense. And we'll find out, in a reason.
Yeah, it's like you drink it. 3, 2. Wow. And it's like an explosion of flavors.
Does it seem like, is this more of a kick? Do you think this is like a higher proof, lower proof than the others?
Yeah, this is higher proof. This is burning my throat. But still,
So it's lasting longer too. Longer finish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a strong finish. What are the tastes that we have here? I don't know.
I
like this one the best though.
Okay, so we have our leader for sure.
Next time I'm in Chicago, this is the one we're drinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to save it for. I can't promise. You never know. No, this one we will 100%.
Oh, that's man, it's just it's amazing. I mean, I took that sip a minute ago, and I still feel it in my cheeks a little bit.
Yeah, right. The cheeks will do that a lot. Yep.
Cheeks. Like this is the only one I've felt in my cheeks.
Interesting. In the cheeks. That's going to be a new note I go to. I feel it in the cheeks.
But what are the flavors here?
There's a lot.
I'll make 2 more sips out of this.
Yeah. So it's you would say it's layered for sure. More layered, more things going on. Which makes a lot of sense.
It's funny because it doesn't really taste like anything at first. And then you swallow it. And then about 3 seconds later, it goes, bam! And then all the flavors hit you.
Yeah.
Like Pop Rocks. This is the Pop Rocks of whiskey right here. That's what this is.
Oh, okay. See? The notes are coming. See? It doesn't always have to be like a fruit or a spice or something like that. Pop Rocks. Although it probably doesn't actually taste like Pop Rocks, I hope.
I don't know if Pop Rocks really taste like anything,
I guess it's just a sensation more than anything.
Yeah,
right?
Whenever you say to someone, what do they taste like? They just go, look, that's what it tastes like.
Fair enough. All right. So a lot going on there.
Yes,
so
love it.
So we have a leader there for sure. So then what, the other two, where do they fall in the lineup?
Well,
push comes to shove.
C is the number one.
Yes.
That'll put some hair on your chest, as my Uncle John would say. Then I'll go number 1 as the first one, A.
Yep.
As number 2, and then B as the third one.
Okay.
B was just okay.
Okay, fair enough. That's good.
With these 3 being the options.
Yes, of course, obviously.
In fact, I'm going to take another my last little sip of the Pop Rocks here.
By all means, absolutely. So I will start the little bit of a reveal. I will go A through C, and we'll end with your winner here.
Okay, great.
I try to do a theme a little bit with everybody, whether it's silly or not. It depends. So this one I'm kind of calling started from the bottom shelf. Now we're here. And I'm playing the game of like price points, moving from super low price point to the luxury kind of price point. So for number 1, which was your second place,
yep,
I moved it. We have Evan Williams, 1783.
Oh, I don't know if I've had that before.
So Evan Williams is a big rent from Heaven Hill out of Bardstown, Kentucky. And Evan Williams is their big rent. I believe it is the second best-selling bourbon in the world as a brand. I'll be next to Jim Beam. Jack Daniels is a Tennessee whiskey. If we counted that as bourbon, that's number 1. But Jim Beam's number 1. Evan Williams is number 2. They have a bottom shelf black label that's just Evan Williams. That's what you see a lot of places usually. That's very cheap. But then this is kind of like the next thing up. And they just recently rebranded this. But this is still about $20 a bottle. It was very affordable.
It was made in 1783. Man, Matt, you have outdone yourself.
I gave you the real vintage stuff. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Wow. This is 238 years old. That is incredible.
Wow. Good math. Hot damn.
I was born in 83, so that was easy math.
But yeah, so like but by the way, if you made that joke with every whiskey with a date on it from the 17 or 1800s, oh my God, every whiskey would be 200 years old. They love their dates on the bottle. So yeah, no, Evan Williams, yeah, they've got a couple different labels, but this is kind of like the second tier. There's the black label, regular no date black label. It's like $15. This is $20 a bottle. They recently upped the proof. This is 90 proof. Used to be 80. And now it is a blend of like 6 to 8 year bourbon. That's what they say in their press release anyway. So this one is going to be, I think it goes a little bit more on the younger side. This one I do as well. I get a little bit of like a grainy, grassy note that you got. And this, yeah, like it's super affordable. I think it's a nice, I'm glad that they upped it to 90 proof. It gives it a little bit more bold flavor, better use in cocktails and stuff like that, especially for a cheaper bottle. But I mean, this is everywhere. You know what I mean? This is on every grocery store that sells liquor. Every liquor store in the country is probably going to have cases of this. So that was your number 2. So that's kind of a nice, that's a good shout out for a bottom shelf whiskey.
But that explains why when you smell this one, you go, whoa.
Yeah, it's probably a little less refined than some of the other ones. You know what I mean? There's a little less, whether it's barrel aging or like something in the distillation. Yeah, it's a little bit more just punch and ready to go. But it's a nice flavor.
Yeah, okay.
So number 2, which was your number 3,
yes,
is a company called Rabbit Hole out of Louisville, Kentucky. They are a newer distillery. They're not like a big heritage distillery like, like Jim Beam or Maker's Mark or anything. They've only been around, I want to say, probably about maybe 10 years or
so
less.
Not since 1783.
Not since 1783. No. But what's they're doing interesting. Their whiskey's a little bit younger, which is maybe why it didn't last as long, wasn't as bold or like tingling on the thing. Because if it's not as old, it doesn't have as much of that barrel character.
I'll have another sip of that while we talk about it.
Just to confirm, and what I do find interesting about this one is the ingredients involved. So now for like regular whiskey, 3 grains, corn, rye, and malted barley. That makes up a pretty standard bourbon. It's got to be at least 51% corn. That's legally what'll help make it bourbon. But then most people will flavor it with rye to a certain percentage, and then you finish it off with a little bit of malted barley because the enzymes in malted barley help with the fermentation process. So that's pretty standard for most bourbons. You can play with those ratios and everything. This one does do something like that, but they do 70% corn, 10% malted wheat, so they malt the wheat. They do 10% malted barley and 10% honey malted barley. So there's no rye in here at all.
The honey, okay.
So yeah, if you got a little bit like a kind of a sweet honey flavor, it actually is in here because they do honey malting
That makes sense
for their barley as well as regular malting. And malting which is funny, I sometimes think I'm influenced by just the words. So when I think malt, I think of like, chocolate malt balls kind of thing, right? Or like malted milkshakes kind of thing. And so I get this like sweet chocolatey kind of flavor, which can happen. But malting in whiskey, when you malt your barley, is literally just taking the grain, the malted rye, the rye, and you put it in water, and it sprouts. That's what malting is.
Wow.
And it sprouts, so it's different. So and that's what it takes. I'm still learning. It takes on some kind of chemical process as it malts in the water. Yeah. And then you use that in your mash and your fermentation and everything like that. Yeah. So, but you can do different kinds of maltings. And there's a lot of companies playing with that now. But so that was a $20 bottle. This is about a $60, $65 bottle. So, and so the whiskey might be a little bit younger, but because they're doing some more experimental things with it, and they are a newer company, so they,
and they're probably making it in smaller batches.
Yep, there's more overhead. That they haven't been around as long. They're not putting out in as huge quantities, so they don't, they can't scale it quite as much, which is the case in a lot of like young craft distilleries. They might have young whiskey, and that they have to charge a lot for it. It's kind of a thing going on, but I like them because they're still doing some very interesting things. And I think in a couple of years, as their whiskey gets older, it'll be really, really nice. But getting to the main event, the granddaddy of them
all. And your winner.
Ding, ding. Coming from Frankfort, Kentucky, weighing in at a hefty 15 years old. And coming in at a bold and beautiful 116.9 proof.
Oh my.
Dun, 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 dun. It's George T. Stagg, unfiltered, uncut bourbon whiskey from Buffalo Trace Distillery. This is from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. One of the most sought after releases every single year in the bourbon world. People will buy this bottle and trade it online for 10 times its value.
What?
Because it's so limited quantities. Every year there was basically two big bourbon releases every year that people go nuts over. One is Pappy Van Winkle, if you've ever heard of it. It's extremely
that sounds made up, by the way.
Oh,
Will Ferrell character.
And you know what? And I don't blame you for thinking like that, but Van Winkle is the actual last name of the family that started it. Julian Van Winkle is still alive today. He's the descendant or whatever. It's their brand. It's a very real name. It sounds like it's made up. But they did it. But
I'm so sorry, Mr. Winkle. What is it?
Van Winkle.
Van Winkle, a fellow Van. I'm so sorry, Mr. Van Winkle.
That's right.
I appreciate your whiskey.
But so that lineup, they have a lineup of 10, 12, 15, 20, and 23-year-old wheated bourbons. But this one, there's 5 different bottles from this collection, but this one is probably one of the most sought after. It's just uncut, unfiltered bourbon whiskey, cask strength from Buffalo Trace. And yeah, this one is if you get it, the appropriate price for this is about $100 to $120 at like retail price. Somebody who's selling it to you MSRP. What would you normally find it for though? $800 to $1,200.
Wow. So how did you get this?
So I do not pay those prices. I kind of made it a moral judge. I'm like, I will not reward scalpers and bottle flippers and stuff. Any fancy bottle I get, I will get through good, basically being a good customer, having a good rapport with the store, good reputation, not just going in there asking them for their most fancy stuff and, give it to me. I go in there, I buy it regularly. Just have a rapport with the staff, talk to them about whiskey, ask them what they like. Sometimes I bring them samples too. I'm not saying to bribe people, but it's sharing your passion with the people who work at the stores. So I had a good relationship with this one store when I was living in the suburbs. And so for a couple of years, I'd get a phone call or an email, be like, hey, these are coming in next week. Which ones do you want? And so I developed that kind of relationship. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. and you'll get the now. I can't always get it. Every year. I won't be able to get this, but you know what? I make it last, and I send it, and I share it with good people, and that's what the bourbon experience is really about. Is it's more about sharing the things that you like and are passionate about with other people, and that's part of the reason I'm doing this show too. But the way you pick this makes a total sense. It's been 15 years in the barrel. That's where all that punch of flavor comes in. It's the strongest, 116 proof. So it's 58% alcohol, but Ooh. And so there is that punch, but all that time in the barrel also just kind of rounds it out. So it while it is strong, there's so much going on. It makes it so flavorful, and that's why bottles like this are. And you put it such a great way. It is an experience.
Yeah. So I know you said there were no right or wrong answers here, but I mean, let's be honest, Matt. I picked the best one.
You absolutely, yes. I mean, pretty like universally, I think any whiskey fan would pick that one as well. But that's why we do these blind too, because sometimes you never know. Don't let the label hype it, because you never know. I could have switched out this one for there's a couple different $20-$25 bottles that you never know. You might have liked a little bit better, even though this one is bold and beautiful. Sometimes there's simple things that can be just as nice, if not nicer.
But I think that the option C, the winner, ended up winning. Like, it looked different, smelled different, and it certainly tastes different. Like, it was the difference, but like we took it up several notches.
Yes, absolutely.
I think from 1 to 2, from option A to B, we took it up a notch, but then we took it up like 5 notches for the next one.
Yes. Absolutely. And again, and there is a reason it's limited. There's a reason it's a special bottle every year. And you got a little dose of that.
Well, now I feel greedy for saying when I come to Chicago, that's what we're drinking, because
no,
special whiskey.
That is what it's for. I still got a little less than half a bottle. I'm good. I've had this thing for how old is it? This one's a little over about a year and a half old. So I'm nursing that one.
What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor's whiskey, Proper 12?
Proper shite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't like it at all.
Wow.
And most whiskey fans that I know, and most Irish whiskey fans especially, nobody's really a fan.
So this was celebrity branding completely?
I mean, from what I understand, he did try to take some time to learn the business or whatever. It was his money. It's his brand. So it's not like some company just hired him to be the PR guy, right? It was a pet project of his, but it's not, I'll tell you this. One, it's not like he went and distilled the whiskey and made it. He went and he formed a company, and what they probably did is they bought whiskey from a distillery that's already making it.
Of course.
Whether or not they intend to start building their own distillery and making it themselves is up to them. I don't know what the long-term plans are. But that's usually what people do when they start a label, especially like a celebrity label. You you private barrel, you buy bulk from a big guy, and then you bottle it under your own label. So he did that, and whatever they did or whatever way they blended it or whatever, I don't know again, but it wasn't very good. I don't know where they got their stocks from. The one thing, the positive I will say is I'm glad that he introduced it at an affordable price point. It's like a $30 bottle. Like, a lot of celebrities sometimes will come out because their name is on it. They'll charge you $80, $100 for their tequila or their gin or whatever it is. But he, in his defense, he wanted something that everybody could go to the store and buy, and it was very widely distributed. And it's not like I wouldn't spit it out, but there's a lot of Irish whiskeys on the shelf that I would grab before it, though.
Well, good for him though for cashing out. I mean, he was already a very wealthy man. Now he is an incredibly wealthy man.
On the flip side, going back to the Rock, Terramana is pretty good.
Terramana is very good. I have the gold bottle.
Okay.
He has the 2 different kinds.
I can't imagine. It's probably a reposado. I don't know if it's an añejo, but usually there's a silver, there's reposado, and then there's añejo, and then you can go extra añejo if you want. Just means how old it's been sitting in a barrel. But
yeah, his is very drinkable.
Yeah, his was not, and everything the guy touches is quality.
That's it.
The Under Armour stuff, like his freaking energy drink, like everything. I'm like, God, he can't miss. I'm waiting for the guy to screw up.
So when is your whiskey coming out?
Oh God, shut up. Everybody does. One
Drama King whiskey.
One here. So there's two things. One, I'm too big of like a fan. I'm too involved in the community to do that because like I know the way the community looks at when people like celebrity. There's a lot of celebrities getting in the whiskey game and they get a lot of flack from the community because it's here comes somebody else buying. Because here's the thing. We all know the distilleries that these celebrities buy from. Like because we're nerds. All we have to do is go, where was it distilled? We know the towns because they may not say, oh, this is Jim Beam whiskey, but if it was distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana or Frankfort, Kentucky, we're like, oh, I know where that's from.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people getting them from the same places, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. And so there's a lot of people where it's like, I know where this is from. You're charging me $80 for that?
Yeah.
Screw you. So, so I have no intention of doing that. Also, it costs a lot of money. Even to start an independent label, like, hey, like I'm gonna get a bottle made, I'm gonna have artwork drawn up, and I'm gonna go get just to get the licenses to be able to buy, in bulk barrels, then to bottle, and then you have to make relationships with distributors because every state has its own distributors. The alcohol system is so messed up in this country because like I can't as a consumer, me or you I can't buy whiskey from Jim Beam. I'm legally never allowed to do that outside of their gift shop. Even that is a new rule. So they have to do it. They have to sell it to a distributor who then sells it to your local liquor store who then sells it to you. And the price changes each time. And so that's why pricing gets so messed up. Sometimes a bottle you can get in Chicago for $50 in California might cost you $100 and in Alabama might cost you $30.
Wow.
And it's like, we're all in the same country buying the exact same thing. How can there be $20 to $50 price difference? It's because distributors can charge whatever they want, and then the liquor store can charge whatever markup they want.
Although I'm fascinated that I can go online and buy alcohol. And when they say, are you 21? I go, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm 21. And then 2 days later, alcohol shows up at my door. It's fascinating.
Well, and in theory, like the places that you can do that with, they're supposed to be like the delivery, UPS, FedEx, whoever's supposed to be checking IDs but like I've gotten stuff delivered to me where they just leave it on the doorstep.
Yeah, same.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think the last time I got wine delivered, they did knock on the door and then I answered and they went, here's your wine. And I went, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So there might be some kinks in the old online alcohol business to work out. But I'm hoping we go that way. I think if we can go that way, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I think pricing and things will be better. And if we can streamline some of this like 3-tiered system, we'll be in a better spot. That's a different question for a different interview. But for now, before we wrap up, I mean, just what have you been doing lately? What are some of the stuff you're excited about that you've either gotten done over the, this last year, a couple of months, or that you've got coming up? Tell us what's going on.
I've been diving a lot into the podcast. So it's called Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Of course, like you mentioned, a lot of people will know me for the wrestling interviews that I've done, but I'll interview anybody. My whole career has been interviewing people that are just fascinating to me. So you can find my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Insight with Chris Van Vliet. And that's been a lot of my focus, is doing these really interesting interviews with people and stealing a little bit of, the things that they do every single day that I can apply to my own life. I'm trying to keep up with you in the gym. That's another thing I've been trying to do. The gym's a big part of my life and my everyday. I don't drink coffee, so going to the gym is my let's kick it into gear here.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't imagine me with coffee. I don't think me with more energy would be scary.
So you just not to be crude here, but you just raw dog it and just go to the gym?
I might be addicted to pre-workout right now.
Oh, okay. So there is some caffeine in your life.
And our friend Ryback has a very good
pre-workout. Oh, feed me more, baby.
Oh, feed me more nutritions. Pre-workout is so good.
Is it? I haven't tried it yet.
Oh, Yes.
Big
So
guy.
good.
Big guy. Hook a brother up.
Big guy right back. Now, for me, it's just like I'm excited about every day. Like that's what I'm pumped about. And the cool thing about what you and I are doing as content creators, and I'm sorry to lump you in with a schlub like me, but the cool thing about what we do is every single day is different. You know, what we're doing today on Wednesday as we tape this is going to be vastly different from tomorrow, and then from the next day and the next day. And it's all about like the harder you work, the more you'll get out of it. Which is just a great mantra for life. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And I'm just excited every day, be like pumped about what I'm doing. And then the goal is to be proud of what I've done at the end of the day.
Yes. And that should be everybody's goal. Be proud. Yeah. Be proud of the work you put in. And you know what? If you do that, you'll probably be proud of the product that comes out at the other side.
Yeah. I would hope so. Like this product. Well, it's not there anymore, but
another product. I mean, absolutely. And like that's, you know, I give a lot of respect to those guys, you know, those people who were like, hey, I want to be a whiskey distiller. Because as I hear a lot about in interviews, I mean, the other thing to think about, which I hope gives a lot of appreciation for people who are outside of this circle, is that sometimes this stuff, their life's work, the stuff that they're working day in and day out and making, they potentially won't be working there when it's done. And or there's a chance, depending on when they do it, because some of these guys get older, they might not be alive. Some of these whiskeys are 20 years old before they bottle them. So think about putting all this effort, making sure everything is perfect, your temperatures, all your equipment, all this stuff. That is your life's work to make this really good whiskey, and you may never get to taste it. Because you're aiming for something that's going to be 20 years old or something like that. And you'll either be retired or dead potentially.
And that's for the most part, just whiskey and bourbon, right?
I mean, you're not
distilling vodka for 10 years.
No, I mean, everything else. So those are just aged spirits. Whiskey is probably the longest aged, maybe brandy and like cognac, Armagnac sometimes will be longer. Those will sometimes be 30, 40 years old or something like scotches too. Which is a different type of whiskey. Sometimes they do really long aging with. Bourbon, you don't want to be going that long with. But gin and vodka are right off the still, and you can put it in the bottle. You know, same with tequila, unless you want to do like an añejo. But even that, it's a year. It's a year in a barrel for an añejo tequila. Rum kind of has some agings, you know, from anywhere from 8 to 15 years, depending on how fancy of rum you want to have. But whiskey in general is those super long aging. A lot of dedication. It's a tough business because you gotta hope it's gonna be good. Because like even at the young end, like these newer people, 4 years is probably your good when your whiskey's probably gonna start reaching a little bit of maturity. So like at the minimum, you have to wait like 4 years before I hope it's good. And you put in all that time and money and investment, and it's a big gamble.
Well, I'm very grateful to them for their hard work and their knowledge to allow us to not only enjoy this, but then enjoy the results of, you know, what happens when you drink this.
Absolutely. Bless you, bourbon distillers. We appreciate you. And Chris, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for being, like I told you in our messages, look, I know you're new to whiskey, but I had a lot of people asking. They're like, hey, who are we going to have on the show? And a lot of people suggested you. They thought you'd be really cool to hang out with, to hear from, and to drink with. And you know what? By God, they were right. And so I appreciate
I am super thankful to those people. Thankful to you, Matt, for returning the favor. You were on my show last year. Thank you for allowing me to come on your show. We're going to be booked on a show, I think, in the next few weeks.
Yes, that's right. So
maybe you'll be making another appearance on my podcast then.
Hey, absolutely. We'll just keep volleying back and forth. We'll
Sounds great. But thank you. This was a blast. And I learned way more today than I could have ever possibly imagined.
Well, good. I see. And that's when you have a little fun, you have a little sip, and you have a little education. That's what we're trying to get out of this show.
Love it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. And everybody, take the lessons, Chris, that we got today. Put in the work, put in the time, work on your dreams, your passions, find those things you love doing, and put in the time and work, and you can make that stuff a reality. And as I always say, always, always, always be wrestling with whiskey. Until the next time, cheers.